the reflex is like the icing on the cake. The lateral breathing actually is what is really important because it restores function. It starts to get the diaphragm to work to its full potential. And so because the pelvic floor works with the diaphragm synergistically, you start to get a lot more work going on with the pelvic floor as well.
Welcome to The Flower Empowered, and today we have another guest, the wonderful Nikki Caputa. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so Nikki started as a personal trainer and worked a lot with postpartum mums. She did a lot of body transformations, and then she started to work with hypopressives. So she's one of only 2 hypopressive trainers, master trainers in the UK. And she is one of the founders of UK Hypopressives. So welcome, Nikki. Very, very nice to have you on today.
Be here, thank you.
What I mean, obviously, hypopressives, it's a type of exercise that focuses a lot on trying to deal with the symptoms of pelvic organ prolapse. So not something that a typical personal trainer would be focused on. So I'm wondering, how did you get involved in hypopressives? What led you down that path?
Well, my own story is that I've got twins, and they're now kind of nearly 18. But I had symptoms after I had them of urge and stress incontinence, and like a lot of women, I was fobbed off quite a lot through the medical system. Kind of told, "Oh, you've had twins. What do you expect? It will get better." There was, come back when it's got worse. Actually, there was that whole do your Kegels, and then go back to exercise, and just if it gets worse, come back, because that's kind of what they could do is do something if it got worse. I trained as a personal trainer, and I was also seeing lots of other women who I felt were probably in a similar situation. I used to run buggy type fitness classes in the park as when I started, and I kind of I could see some quite fragile people, and was then starting to question really what I was giving them. So I really wanted to find something for myself to help my symptoms. And my twins were 12. I left it till they were kind of 12 before I even thought about there being something else there for me. But I kind of got to that point where I thought, hang on, I'm still quite young. This shouldn't be happening to me. I shouldn't just be putting up with this. I think that's a lot of what happens with women, is they're busy bringing up their kids. They're busy being a mum, busy being everything, basically. And then they leave themselves to the last. And then I had enough, really. And there was someone that I was following on social media, was talking a lot about hypopressives. And then very fortunate that she then said there's going to be a first course in the UK. I think that was around 2012. And so myself and Richard, the other half of UK Hypopressives, we jumped on the course and kind of never looked back, really.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And, obviously, if you waited until your kids were 12, do you find that a lot of your clients are also leaving it and not doing anything until it's quite advanced?
I think with something like incontinence, so stress and urge incontinence, I think that women just think that's a normal part of having had children, and just something that happens to them, and that it, if it doesn't go away, oh well, But so I see quite a lot of people that maybe left it, or I actually see quite a lot of people that maybe didn't have too many symptoms after they'd had children, so they didn't really have any issues after, or they had issues but they kind of went away to a degree where they could cope with them. But then later on in life now, as they're getting sort of later into their 40s, they're finding that certain symptoms are creeping in because they're starting to head towards the menopause.
Yeah.
I think at the moment that's more common for me, but I'm seeing women more of my age now where they didn't do anything about it, and they've actually started to get associated issues now.
Okay, so if we with your own issues, obviously you started 12 years ago then with your hypopressive training. Not 12 years.
When the kids were 12, so that was
the kids were 12.
Well, I can always remember that because they were born in 2000.
Like my own daughter, it's a great, it's millennial babies, easy to figure out.
Yeah. But yeah, so I decided, I obviously jumped on the course. And what I initially found was I also needed the help of a women's health physio. So, you know, for anybody really that's out there, their first port of call should be a professional that knows about that type of stuff. And, you know, although I'm very educated on that area, there is always the need for them to see a women's health physio, especially if there's pain, discomfort, any incontinence, because really and truly you don't 100% know what's going on. You've got a rough idea. You've got maybe you might have an idea that there's something happening. But yeah, so I saw a women's health physio, and she kind of helped me along with hypopressives to be at a stage now where I am probably fitter and stronger than I've ever been. I mean, I was a hairdresser before I was a personal trainer. I had terrible posture. I stood over people all day, every day in a really busy salon. And I had lots of other red flags that I didn't really think about before I had children, where I was having constant pain. You know, I've been in road traffic accidents. I've fallen from a horse. All of those things that have built up that picture of weakness before I even had children.
Yeah.
And then I had the kids, and, you know, obviously carrying twins to 35 weeks was a major issue. And, you know, I didn't really have any problems during the pregnancy other than feeling terrible. And I remember sort of back pain and stuff like that. But, you know, you think about what your body then went through with that. And it just ruined me. You know, after I'd had them, I remember looking down at myself and thinking, what is
what has happened?
Why do I still look pregnant from the start? You know, I looked about 16 weeks pregnant when I'd had them. It was ridiculous. So yeah, and I think I'm the same as a lot of people. I think we just expect our bodies, because we've got this reproductive system, we expect our bodies to be able to just, you know, have kids and snap back and not really think about what the pregnancy does to it. And, you know, people say to me, oh, well, I didn't have a vaginal birth, I had cesarean, so therefore, but you've still carried a baby, and all the fluids and everything else has squashed all your pelvic organs. And
yeah, and you've compromised your lower abdominals then as well, which they do participate along with your pelvic floor. So,
and as if you're in a weakened state before that, you know, through the things I've described of my own personal story, then actually, you know, you put those pieces together and you're broken when you. Well, I was broken when I'd had my kids without even realising it. So, and I was lucky, I was fortunate, I suppose, that I just had incontinence. But yeah, I mean, I used a women's health physio. I'd always recommend people to see a women's health physio.
Yeah.
And hypopressives too. And I suppose because it worked so well for me, I just explored it more, did more training, and then kind of was just amazed by some of the results I was getting with my clients, and, you know, just went on from there really.
So for somebody who wants to try hypopressives, I mean, obviously you've trained a lot of people now, so there are people available all across the UK.
Yeah.
What should like, let's say I'm a woman and I'm living in the UK and I'm having some sort of problems with my pelvic floor, maybe some incontinence, or maybe I've been told to have a pelvic organ prolapse. What should I expect when I go to a hypopressive trainer?
Well, hypopressives, we only train 1-to-1. So just because everyone's very individual, the way they learn, and also their problems are very individual. So we can't kind of do it as a big class. It just doesn't really work. So you would get some assessments done with your trainer, you know, when you start on the first session. That we would look at posture, we'd look at how what the tone in the area of the abdominals is like, how they're communicating, you know, what their competency is like. We'll look at diaphragm. We'll also look at diastases, separation, tummy separation, and then it's just a case of starting to learn what is essentially just breathing and postures. And it sounds very simple, but, you know, it works very differently to anything else people will have seen. So it does take time. It can be challenging, and you know, 6 sessions is usually enough to have got you in a really good habit. And usually people are very motivated by their problems, and then just basically do it for life.
Well, you know, as a student of yours, I mean, obviously I've done your level 1 training. I found it very interesting that when I tried, you know, the first few times in the classes to actually get that hypopressive motion, kind of tap into the reflex, it wasn't there. You know, it didn't happen right away. So what do you say to the women who maybe have tried once or twice and they're not quite getting it?
I don't stress out about it. Everyone gets it. I think I've trained hundreds of women now, and I've probably had one person that didn't actually get the subconscious reflex, and that was because she just had a major disconnect. She'd had some nerve damage, and I just think that it had gone. But the benefit she got, she was a singer, so she had an amazing diaphragm. And the benefit she got just from doing the rest of it. So that's the thing, you know, the reflex is like the icing on the cake. The lateral breathing actually is what is really important because it restores function. It starts to get the diaphragm to work to its full potential. And so because the pelvic floor works with the diaphragm synergistically, you start to get a lot more work going on with the pelvic floor as well. So actually, although it looks very cool to be able to do that vacuum and to suck everything in, and although you're not sucking it in, it happens by itself. Yeah. You know, I think because it looks so amazing, everyone like wants to kind of get to that, but it really isn't the most important thing. It's just the icing on the cake. So, you know, I just tend to say to people, well, just really practice the lateral breathing, get your diaphragm understanding what you're wanting it to do, and then the rest will come. And usually it does. The more you stress someone out about not being able to do something, the more they can't do it, basically. Yeah. So yeah.
So if we talk a little bit about the lateral breathing, what exactly is that? Maybe you can give our listeners an idea of what lateral breathing actually involves.
Well, we call it ribcage breathing. It's a way of getting the diaphragm to really stretch. So diaphragm sits up and under the ribcage. Majority of people, when they first start the breathing, they're either tummy breathers or chest breathers. They're not really using all of their muscles to the full potential. So not only are we talking about the diaphragm, but lots and lots of deep core muscles, all the muscles that you're not really thinking about that are deep inside you, start to communicate better through lateral breathing. So it's where the rib cage, as you inhale, where the rib cage actually expands sideways and then comes back in when you exhale.
Very good. So if somebody decides that they want to try hypopressives, where can they find? I mean, we have a database with over 4,000 specialists, and there are quite a few hypopressive trainers now registered in there. I know you're in there as well. But where I know you have also on your website, we will put a link down below. How do they go about finding these hypopressive trainers?
Well, we're obviously, as you know, we're actively trying to get courses across all the areas where we're a bit lacking at the moment. And at the moment, we've got quite a lot of trainers in the south of England and not so many in the north. So we are actively trying to get more courses in the north of England so we could start to get a much more of an even spread of trainers across the country. We've got a directory on our website that's got all of our certified trainers. We've got lots of trainers that have come on courses and are kind of still students. We're just waiting for assessments to come through. But, you know, we're regularly updating that website with new trainers. So it's always worth checking back. The other thing is always worth doing is emailing me and just saying, look, I can't see anybody in my area, because often some of our trainers have said, I don't mind travelling, or we can usually work something out. And we've had situations where, especially myself, where people have come down for a weekend and stayed, and then we've done a couple of hours of training, and then they've come back sort of in a month or two's time and done it that way. And we've kind of, because I always give out homework, I'm always sort of very strong, and the other trainers are the same on communication with the client. They're never kind of left just to get on with it. So there's always that option. But, you know, a lot of our trainers will put themselves out because they know that there's big gaps in the UK at the moment, especially more north of London and London itself. I mean, really, London's quite poorly covered at the moment. We've only got 6, but, you know, over the next few years, I'm hoping that we'll do more good work with the courses, and we'll just get more people across the UK. So, yeah, as word spreads. The other thing we've got on Facebook is the prolapse group, so it's Hypopressives to Prolapse UK, and you can go in there and ask for advice and help and a trainer if you want to. But all of the UK Hypopressive certified trainers are on our directory.
Great. Well, so we'll put a link to that Facebook group down below as well. And maybe let's talk a little bit about the actual habit itself. So when we learn to do hypopressives, I mean, I do my hypopressives every morning. I do just a simple, the routine usually takes between 10 and 15 minutes, just depending on how slowly I'm breathing or how many rounds of breath I choose to take. So maybe talk a little bit about, because I mean, obviously, people want to try to find things that they can do that doesn't take so much time, because if you're a mother and you have a busy life, then you know there might not be time to go out and take a 1 hour class or to do something big, but this is, I believe, something that can fit into a very small portion of your day and can have such a dramatic impact. So can you talk a little bit about the habit of doing hypopressives?
Yeah. I personally, I try and I encourage my trainers to do this. When we're taking someone through a 6 week, say we do it 6 weekly program where I'm seeing them once a week. Once a week's just not going to be enough, and usually once a week is learning something new. So in the week following the next session, really, I'm asking that person to put in practice every day. And you know, a lot of people are a bit like, oh God, every day, but 10 minutes. 10 minutes you would scroll through Facebook, 10 minutes you would sit and watch some trivia on the television, 10 minutes. I know, I know I'm talking to busy mums, I know I'm talking to busy business women or whoever it is, but we can still find 10 minutes. So over the period of time that I'm giving them the 6 week education of hypopressives, I would always encourage them to do as much regular practice as they can throughout that 6 weeks. So they start to build a habit, just as you said. And then it's just really about finding what works for you. If we've got someone, everyone's symptoms, everyone's problems are very different, and how they react is very different as well. So if someone is getting really good relief of their symptoms within that 6 week period, then I would just say, carry on with what you've been doing in terms of your practice until you get to a point where you're like really happy with everything. And then maybe sort of see, you might find, or that person might find, that they absolutely love doing it every day, so therefore that's it, that's their thing. But I know for myself, I went from kind of doing it every day, being really religious about it, and now kind of just fitting it in and putting it, usually I put it on the end of a weight training session. Mm-hmm. So if I go in the gym, do my weights, and then do a bit of a reset by doing 10, 15 minutes of hypopressives at the end. So that could be 3-4 times a week for me as maintenance. Yeah. That might be 6 months down the line, that might be a year down the line, that might be 2 years out. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of very individualized to the person. It depends on where they're at and what they enjoy. So you're right, it's an amazing thing that you can just kind of fit in anyway. You don't need any specific there's no equipment, there's no masses of space need. They don't have to go to a class. They haven't really got if they've got a baby, wait until it's sleeping, 10 minutes, quickly do your hypopressive, done. It's fantastic. And I'd honestly say with people that have put in consistent practice, they're the ones that have improved really well with what they're doing and kind of are really able to move on to the next step and also start to see some really good results. Whether it's all in the mind, I don't know, but just the act of doing something about it can make someone think, well, actually, I'm starting to feel better. I'm not feeling so bad about this. But, even in a short space of 2 weeks, people have said, oh, actually, I'm not, things are feeling better. So, it's a powerful thing, really.
Yeah, I believe so. When I tack it on to the beginning of my yoga practice. So, I'm a yoga teacher and I practice yoga. I have a 6-day-a-week Ashtanga practice. So I roll out my mat every morning anyway to do my Ashtanga practice. Right. And it's so Ashtanga is a very mindful practice. It's the same sequence basically. There's a number of different series, but you do the same sequence every day. So your body, with yoga, we have a single point of focus always with the mind. With we listen to a single point, we look at a single point, and we move and try to keep that kind of nice internal focus. And actually, I found that the hypopressive habit fits in very nicely with that because it adds on to that focus. And hypopressive exercises, I know that hypopressives themselves, this is something that's new in the Western world, but the Uddiyana Kriya, which is the yoga hyperpressive, has been practiced for centuries. And that is something that in my rehabilitation I had been doing. So when I heard about hyperpressives, I couldn't wait to see, okay, where do we go with this? The Uddiyana Kriya we do just seated in meditation basically, and you do it more as a breathing exercise than anything else. But it benefited me, and now that there is a moving practice along with that, I do believe that it's very beneficial, even just for getting the breath,
I mean, I think that there's origins for the breathing in yoga, there's origins for the postures from some of Bernadette de Gasquet's work. So, and I think it's like anything, nothing is completely unique, but what is unique about hypopressives is that subconscious element. So, getting the core to be working in the background for us without us even realizing. You're going to sneeze, your core's already knowing that, and your muscles have got into the right groove and they're ready for the sneeze. So you don't wet yourself, or you need to run for a bus, and you're worrying, you're not even thinking about your core, you're just running for the bus. But the subconscious element of your core is active and working. So it's that's what's so unique about it, and that's what I think. I think the whole breath hold thing does something weird to the brain and does almost like a bit of a reset with everything, and that's why we were getting such amazing results with them.
Could you maybe talk about some of the results? Do you have any patient stories that you can share?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've obviously trained like hundreds of people now, and one of the cases that I had fairly recently was quite a young mum. She'd had 4 children, I think, quite close together, and her baby was about just under a year, I think, when she found me, and she had a mild prolapse. But she was completely freaked out about it. She was looking at it all the time. She was checking it. She was really worrying about it. Again, she's quite young. She never really expected that it would happen to her. She had sort of symptoms of pain and bulging and just general discomfort, didn't feel herself, and, was totally frazzled with lots of kids and looking after a new baby. And I know that she had lots of private investigations with it, like she'd been privately to have people assess her, and I think she was sort of a bit worried because they kind of felt it wasn't bad enough to do anything about, really, in terms of a medical point of view. So she came to Hypopressives. I think, in all honesty, she had 2 sessions with me, and she went back for a gynae appointment, and her prolapse had reversed. But that was with 2 sessions. She was doing some homework in between, obviously. So I saw her 1 week, and then I probably saw her 2 weeks after that. And in between time, she was doing her own homework. And she said the gynecologist actually called someone else into the room and said, "This isn't here anymore."
That's brilliant.
So, I mean, that's an amazing result. And I don't see something so quick all the time. So it doesn't always happen like that. I had a lady recently in her 60s who had already had repair surgery, not using the mesh, but using her own tissue. She was an ex-nurse. She'd done her research about hypopressives, and she said, she wanted to use it very much as a rehab and a preventative method for once she'd had her surgery. So we waited till she had her all clear. And when I did her history, she said it was impacting on her life where, she really liked to walk. That was her thing. She didn't go to the gym or anything like that, but she liked to be able to go out for walks. She loved gardening. And those 2 things she was still finding, even post-surgery. She was getting certain symptoms. And so, her expectation was that we would maybe not get rid of those symptoms, that what we're doing is actually using it as a preventative method. So now she's had the surgery, that we actually keep those results from the surgery and actually hopefully make all that area stronger and more supportive, so she would never have to have that issue again. I think what she found at the end of the training period was that some of her symptoms have reduced. So she said that walking was kind of good for her. She was back walking properly, going out for nice long walks, and she'd gone back to a bit of gardening. She said she tried kind of digging and stuff like that, and she still wasn't confident enough to be doing that. I think she's just a bit worried about it. The amazing thing with her was that, I mean, I can't show you because I haven't got the pictures, but it was her posture. Because it's something she didn't even really think about when she came to me. She was focusing very much on sort of pelvic floor and the issues she'd had there. But her posture massively changed, and like the tone in her arms, because she'd never been someone that had gone to the gym, never been anybody that was kind of interested in weights or anything like that. And we were like, well, I can't quite believe that's, you haven't been in the gym doing something, because your arms the top of her arms look totally different, because she'd started to use those muscles properly in the postures. So often I find with people, they come very much focused on a horrible issue that they've got.
Yeah.
And we do see some change, but I've said to her, the likelihood is over time, things are just going to improve. And there's always that prevention thing going on in the background, that we're actually stopping anything from ever getting any worse by keeping doing this. But, they end up with these amazing results where, you look at their posture at the beginning and you look at it at the end, and they're like, wow, I didn't even realise that I was doing anything differently, and yet look at me, So it can make a big difference to people's confidence, and just so that they're two kind of either end of the scale, sort of a young mum and then an older lady, but I see all sorts of different things every day. So
fantastic. I think it's if you look at the science. When you start to, there's been a few studies on hypopressives, but there's a lot more on physiotherapy, obviously. But all of the studies say the same thing: like, doing something is better than doing nothing. And with something as easy to do as hypopressives, when you get into that habit, I think the potential.
Easy to fit in, yeah.
It's the potential for some level of improvement, and it's wonderful to hear that it, because you can feel it when you do. You're not just working on your pelvic floor. You are using your whole body. So,
well, I know myself, my physique, sort of around my waist area, has massively changed. The activation of the muscles at the back of your waist, which people, when you go in the gym, I see it a lot, doing personal training. Everyone's sitting there doing crunches, doing planks, doing conventional stuff, thinking about the front of their, all of this area here, not really thinking about anything else that's associated with the core. There's so much more involved. And it's great when you see someone, they've got a tight t-shirt on, they're doing hypopressives, they've got the vacuum, the reflex, and you can really see those muscles starting to work around the back. And obviously everywhere, really deep inside, is working. So for me, I just think it's really, really changed the shape of me. I had kind of very straight up and down shape, and now I've got much more of a natural waist now, just from doing hypopressive. So there's a benefit of, reducing your waist size and getting more defined shape there as well, which we don't, we're focusing on prolapses, we're focusing on incontinence, we're focusing on hernias, diastases, all of those sort of things, because they're usually an issue, a problem that's causing weakness. But some of the other benefits are very much aesthetic, so what you're looking like and how it can impact on your shape. And if you think about posture, if you're in a much better posture, then you just look much better anyway than being slouched over. And a lot of people say, I know I've got bad posture, and well, you don't have to. That's the thing. You don't have to have bad posture. Just the same as you don't have to live with incontinence. You don't have to live with a prolapse. You don't have to wait till it gets worse. If you're in your 60s and you're thinking, oh, well, I'm too old, it's my age. Everyone's got this, it's my age thing. And unfortunately, it's made very normal by the media with, marketing pull-up pants, which all I can say is they look like adult nappies, and they're trying to make them have flowers on them and look really pretty. But actually, they're just covering up a problem that you can do something about. It doesn't matter what age you are, you can do something about it. So I think that's, if you only take home one message is, if you've got an issue, there's always something you can do about it that doesn't involve surgery. And okay, further down the line, you may need, if your condition is so bad, you may need to have some form of surgery to help you. But why not try something that doesn't involve a surgical procedure first? See what happens, and you may find that you can live with those symptoms that you've still got, and you've got that preventative measure in place. So,
and even if you are going to go for a surgery, you should get yourself into the best possible shape, because recovery after surgery is easier if you're already fit and healthy and everything's in good standing.
It's the same really with getting pregnant. anyone that's thinking about getting pregnant should be doing hypopressives. It's absolutely 100%. I really wish I'd done it myself. I've told you all about all the little things that weakened me. There'll be other people sitting there going, oh yeah, I know. Well, I had that car accident and my back hurts and I'm in a job where I'm hunched forward, and do something about it before you get pregnant. You'll put yourself in the best possible position before you have your child, and do it then after. And then if you go on to have more, then you're always kind of looking after yourself. I think that's it. We just presume our bodies can do all this, and actually a lot of the time we end up very, very weakened and don't really know why and what we can do about it.
Very good. So thank you so much. I think if there was one last message, if there's a message that you want to give to the men and women out there, because obviously this is for men too, what advice would you give? What would you say?
Don't think that there's nothing you can do. There's always something you can do. Even if you've been through surgery, even if you're thinking about surgery, or you're just having a small amount of leakage and you're thinking it's not a problem, that problem will get worse over time. So just come and try hypopressives, come and try it and build it as part of your routine, and then you won't have to live with those issues.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much for today. I mean, I think this was really wonderful. We will put links down below for your Facebook group and for your directory also. And of course, if anybody is, physiotherapist, yoga teacher, manual therapist interested in training for hypopressives, they can also reach out. Do you have any trainings coming up soon that you would like to highlight?
Of course, yeah. We've got courses pretty much running every month for the rest of the year, and the types of people that we're looking for is anybody in the health and fitness industry. So we often have chiropractors and osteopaths, physiotherapists, yoga, personal trainers, all of those types of people. So if anyone's interested in maybe finding out a bit more, then I'm always happy to do a taster session with them. And then if they wanted to come on the course, our next course is actually 22nd, 23rd of September. And that's in Reading. And then the following week, we're back in Ireland. So hoping that we get lots of people in Ireland interested in hypopressives. But yeah, we're back in Belfast. But like I say, if you have a look on the website, there's another course in November in Cornwall. And then we're just busy planning next year as well. So there will be many, many more, because we need many, many more trainers across the UK.
Yes, we do. We'll keep up the fantastic work. And thank you so much for today.
Thank you.